the government cannot guarantee, much less give you an immune status na you are freed of any and all liability. Masyadong mataas na. I think we cannot even do that, even if we wanted to. Yung assumption ng liability for the stocks that are bought from the private sector. Because in the first place, hindi atin yan. Meron kung nagkaletse-letse yan, mishandling, or for whatever reason it is not effective as advertised, then they will go after against whom? Ang gusto ng mga manufacturers na ang gobyerno, ang private sector magbili, ang gobyerno ang mag-assume ng liability. Hindi ko pwede yung ganon. I do not think that may ano dyan, may malaking butas dyan, actually.
The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Philippine Airlines will be departing for Beijing tonight to pick up 400,000 doses of Sinovac. To tell us more about this and some other issues raised at last night's presidential address, we have Maricel Halili. She's reporting to us live from Mandaluyong. Good morning, Maricel. We have this PAL aircraft said to be flying out to China to pick up vaccines. Do we know when this is scheduled to be back?
Yes, Charles. Based on the statement of vaccine czar Carlito Galvez during the talk to the people of President Duterte last night, he did mention that about 400,000 doses of Sinovac are expected to arrive here in the Philippines tomorrow. If we follow the standard protocol from the airport, it will be delivered straight to our storage facility for distribution. This 400,000 doses of Sinovac are still donated by the Chinese government, but of course, we're expecting more this month. Secretary Galvez mentioned last night that we're expecting about 2.3 million doses of vaccines before the end of this month. It includes the 400,000 doses of Sinovac, like what I've mentioned earlier, and another 1 million doses of Sinovac, which the government or the national government has purchased from the Chinese company, and almost 1 million doses of AstraZeneca from the COVAX facility.
Right, more vaccines equals good news for us here. But then where will these vaccines be brought for storage before distribution to hospitals?
Yes, these vaccines, if we follow the standard protocol from the airport, it will be delivered to the health department storage facilities. The health department has already pinpointed some storage facilities where these vaccines can be brought. And just to note what Secretary Galvez also mentioned last night, he's suggesting that probably it will be better to have a simultaneous inoculation, not just for health workers, but for other sectors included in the priority list, because he mentioned that based on his observation, this is what the United States did as part of their vaccination program. So he sees that this is also possible here in the Philippines to fast-track also our vaccination program.
All right, Maricel, last night the President mentioned that he can't allow the government to assume liability for vaccines procured by the private sector under the tripartite agreement. But Maricel, this appears to run contrary to the very point of having a tripartite arrangement to begin with. What's the deal here? And more importantly, what now?
Exactly, Charles. It's a bit ironic. We were also surprised when President Duterte said last night that he doesn't think that it is advisable or it is logical or it is legal in that sense for the government to spend millions of pesos should these vaccines have adverse effects to those who will be inoculated. And this is exactly what the indemnification, or this is exactly the purpose of the indemnification law that the President himself signed. Because the government wants to give protection to the vaccine manufacturers to ensure that they won't, or they will allow the private sectors, the national government, the local government to purchase their vaccines. Because some of the brands of, or some vaccine manufacturers are concerned that they might experience the fate of Dengvaxia, and they don't want that to happen. And to be able for the national government to convince these vaccine manufacturers to sell vaccines to the Philippines, they decided to pass an indemnification law to give them protection. And of course, as we all know, the national government requires the private sector as well as the local government to sign a tripartite agreement, because this is also one of the conditions of the manufacturing or the vaccine manufacturer. So it's a bit ironic that the president mentioned those things last night.
Right, Maricel, the law is in place, so I suppose we'll see where that goes. But then the president also explained while the government is trying to avoid a full-blown lockdown, and he said, and I quote, he'd rather put people in the right places at this time. What did he mean by this?
Well, Malacanang has been consistent in saying that they are trying to balance the opening of the economy and the health condition of the public. President Duterte acknowledged that a lot of people have already suffered because of the lockdown, meaning a lot of or hundreds of thousands of Filipinos have already lost their jobs. Many of us have already experienced hunger because of the strict community quarantine that the government has imposed since last year. And so this is what the president mean with his statement last night. He said that it is important for the Filipinos to start working again so that they can cope up with their issue on hunger and poverty. Otherwise, they will continue to suffer, not because of the COVID-19, but because of closure of businesses.
Right, Maricel, we have Health Secretary Duques saying that the record high number of cases recorded yesterday may not even be the worst yet. In fact, he said that that number might even rise further. Do we have the reason for this?
Well, the health secretary is actually blaming the non-compliance of some Filipino people when it comes to the minimum health protocol, particularly wearing a face mask, social distancing, and wearing a face shield. The increased mobility of the public because of the opening of the economy and the new variants of COVID-19. But of course, what Secretary Duque mentioned last night is that they are trying to augment additional healthcare workers to help our existing healthcare workers, especially now that they are overwhelmed with the surge of cases. But of course, he said that he is not taking out or he's not denying the possibility that there might be another increase of the cases of COVID-19 if the government do not impose strictly these protocols.
Right. Do we have any more specifics on the health department's strategy to maybe help prevent this number from ballooning even further?
Well, Secretary Duque mentioned that there's a need for improvement on the genome sequencing, that's one, and of course the minimum health standard, as the government has been implementing right now. That's why they are trying to come up with a new strategy, particularly the travel bubble that the Philippine National Police has explained yesterday, which includes Metro Manila, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, and Bulacan. There will be restrictions on the movement of the people to avoid the spread of the virus. And of course, they are trying to fast-track the delivery of the vaccines.
Right, so Maricel, we have about a week left in March. How many vaccines are we expecting to receive before 2Q arrives?
We're expecting about 2.3 million doses of vaccines, which includes the 400,000 doses of Sinovac donated by the Chinese government, and 1 million doses of Sinovac that the national government has already purchased. 1 million also of AstraZeneca from the COVAX facility, but Secretary Galvez said that the bulk of the vaccines are expected to be delivered sometime in third or fourth quarter of this year. So probably we'll have a staple supply starting in August.
Right, do we have any other salient points from last night's address?
President Duterte criticized those who are politicizing the issue. He specifically mentioned Senator Ping Lacson and Senator Ontiveros for questioning where does the fund that the Senate has approved went, or considering now that there is a need for a vaccine, how come that we still don't have enough supply of vaccine, given the fact that they have already approved or allotted money for that. So President Duterte mentioned that nobody from the officials or nobody from the government is now holding a cash allotted for the vaccine. It's still with the ADB and the World Bank, because we can only withdraw the fund after the vaccines has been delivered to the country.
Thanks for that, Maricel. Again, that was Maricel Halili reporting live from Mandaluyong. The PNP clarifies that Mega Manila residents can still travel this Holy Week as long as their destinations are also within the NCR Plus bubble. This comes as some tourists decided to cancel their Holy Week plans and reservations due to the new protocols affecting businesses like resorts within Mega Manila. On One News' The Chief's PNP OIC Guillermo Eleazar said travel is still allowed within NCR Plus, but still subject to restrictions. And Eleazar also noted that religious practices done outside churches during Holy Week is also allowed, as long as people follow the minimum health protocols.
Sa amin po, meron pa rin tayong mga personnel that will be deployed in the vicinity of our religious establishments, ating mga simbahan, para kung sakali mo may pupunta doon, as long as naman po na in-observe nila yung physical distancing and they wear the necessary shield and mask, wala po naman siguro magiging problema yon.
Interior Undersecretary Ipimako Densing also clarified that the GCQ bubble is not a form of lockdown. On 1PH sa totoo lang, Densing said they are only implementing heightened restrictions as they have to contain the transmission of the new variant within GCQ areas. Densing added that although non-essential travel within the bubble is allowed, it is not recommended.
Hindi po ito lockdown, ano? Nililinaw ko hindi ito lockdown. Ang tawag po natin dito is heightened restriction. So kung ano po ang rules ng GCQ, yung po ang masusunod. Kung ikaw ay nasa Metro Manila at gusto mong lumabas ng Metro Manila, papunta po ng Laguna, Cavite, Rizal o Bulacan, pwede pong lumabas, non-essential po yan, no? Pero wala pong nakalagay kasi dyan sa IT, pero dinidiscourage po natin.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 1 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.